Welcome to Kardec Radio, where you nourish your soul daily. As you wait for our next program on the way to the light, visit Kardec Publisher at kardecpublisher.com to check out our latest books. Also, check out our Kardec Flicks, Spiritism in a Click. Just go to kardecflix.com. And now with you, our host, Angy Stewart, with the program On the Way to the Light. Enjoy it.
Good evening, my friends. This is Angy Stewart from Mia Inner Light, and we are here live on Kardec Radio. Welcome, welcome. As we are always doing, once a month, on the first Thursday of the month, we study beautiful books, and we have been studying this book, On the Way to the Light. This is a historical book. It helps us to understand how our planet was created, what were the first civilizations that were brought to Earth. There were already some civilizations living on Earth, and then there were others that were brought to Earth. We have been studying it for 5 months. Today, we are doing the 5th chapter, and it is about the Hindu civilization. It is beautiful. It tells us a lot of details. And to understand these details, we are going to have 2 guests talking, having this conversation that is fun, interesting, and you all can join. You can put your questions, your comments, I can read, and we can all participate together. And in the last 10 minutes, we studied this other book, What is Spiritism? Also codified by Kardec, but it's not a very big book. It's thin, and we have been studying it for a long time, so we are almost finishing. We are in page 195. So this book is like a summary of Spiritism to people that don't know very well. So Kardec created it like in a style of conversation. Very, very interesting. So as we always do, let's close our eyes for brief moments. Let's connect with the good spirits, and then we can start. I hope you have your water bottle. In Spiritism, we understand the good spirits will put good vibrations in the water, and we all get like stronger and happier. So let's close our eyes. Father, Mother, Father, thank you so much for the opportunity of being here tonight to continue our study of Spiritism, helping us to understand what we should and shouldn't do in order to progress, to feel happier, and to bring also understanding to our brothers and sisters. And for this, we ask the enlightened spirits to come close to us, helping, guiding, inspiring. Tonight, not just myself, but also my 2 friends that will be here with me, Juan and Katia, so we can all have this wonderful conversation and help our brothers and sisters that will be listening to understand it better as well. So be it. Very good. So let me bring my friends. Hello, Juan. How are you?
Hi, Angy. How are you?
Happy to have you here with us. Thank you. Thank you for accepting. So to the ones that don't know Juan also lives here in Miami, very close to the Spiritist Center. We are super happy to have him as a dedicated member, studies a lot, and it's a pleasure to have him sharing his knowledge, his studies from this book here live with us. Thank you, Juan.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And now we have Katia. Hello, Katia.
Hello, Angy. Hello, Juan. How are you guys doing?
So super happy to have you here with us. So as you are newer to here, let us guests know how you end up here in Mia Inner Light. Tell us a little bit.
I'm from Spirit Society of Palm Beach here in Boca Raton. But when I changed job like a couple of years ago, I met Angy, and by the destiny also we have a friend, in common friend. So then we starting like, of course, talking about spiritism, and Angie inviting me to do things here, helping her to inner light. So happy to be with you guys and to be here again.
So happy to have you here. I miss you at work. Yeah, so it was so nice that we worked together, but it was wonderful that we connect, and then we saw that spiritism was something that could connect us even more. So yes, she does not leave us close as one,
True.
but it's really happy to have you here with us, and of course when we are online, it helps a lot, makes life a little bit easier.
Sure.
So, to the ones that are arriving right now, thank you for your presence. I hope you can contribute with your questions, your comments, and it also makes the study a little bit more exciting. And I only can see your names if you write something. So I see that we have a friend here, Dorelis. Hello, Dorelis. Good evening. Happy to have you here with us. So, as we cannot waste time, we need to end at 10 o'clock sharp. Let's start. Again, on the way to the light. Today, this evening, we are doing the chapter 5th. We are going to be talking about the Hindu civilization. And the first item from the chapter is called the Hindu organization. So I will read a little bit and then we can start commenting. Of all the spirits exiled on earth, those that gathered on the banks of the Ganges were the first to form the basis of an organized society, whose centers would represent the largest percentage of ancestors for the collectivities of the future. The Hindu civilization is of an even earlier origin than the Egyptian civilization, and they came along before the Israelite communities that would later produce not noteworthy individuals such as Abraham and Moses. So look how interesting. First, the Hindu civilizations, then the Egyptian civilizations, then the Israelites. And when we talk about old civilizations, the first thing would come to our mind, the Egyptians. And when we talk about the Egyptians, we immediately think about the pyramids. But the pyramids were not the most old thing the Egyptians did. The Egyptians lived in the desert for centuries before they really built the pyramids. So this is a fun fact that not a lot of people know about. So very good. So let's start, my friends. Let's start talking about this first item, the Hindu organization. What do you guys would like to mention?
Well, before we get going, for those who are interested in knowing a little bit more about the exiles from Capella, I would recommend a book written by Edgar Armand, spiritist in Brazil, who wrote a book by the name of The Capella Exiles. And he goes into a lot of detail about each group and how they came to be. And it's very, very interesting. And if the subject catches your attention and you like it, this book is great. It's not available in English yet. I was able to download a PDF version of the book, But to me, it answered a lot of questions that I had in my mind even before I became aware of Spiritism. In my travels, I went to a lot of places where I like to go to places like pyramids and ruins and all that. And I was always amazed by the Mayans and the pyramids that they have, and some of the Peruvian and Bolivian uh, places that indicate that there were civilizations that preceded the Mayans and the Incas, because their knowledge could not possibly have built all these things. And that was a mystery to me until I became aware of the exiles from Capella. And that brought the whole thing into a different perspective because it answered the question, how come all these things are there? And the answer is the exiles from Capella were responsible for the pyramids and for many other things that to this date we haven't found a plausible explanation for these things. And I'll only mention one that to this date amazes people. There's I don't know if you are familiar with the lines of Nazca. Nazca is a place in Peru, and if you're underground, as I was, all these things are trenches that seem to go nowhere. You follow the trench, and all of a sudden you come to a wall, and then you got to go left or right, and there's no rhyme or reason why these trenches were built that way until you get up in the air in a balloon or in a plane, and then you can see that these trenches are the images of animals or other objects that can only be seen and appreciated from up high. So, this is not, I was totally amazed that I couldn't make sense of this before Spiritism and before becoming familiar with the Capella exiles. So that all makes kind of sense to me. And that's why I was happy to dive into the book.
Well, two things. Yes, I know the book. I have read this book many years ago. But I remember studying that book and studying this book. There were some discrepancies that I couldn't understand. And then I remember going to like minimum 5 people that I studied a lot about Spiritism. And then they mentioned, yes, there are discrepancies that we cannot understand. So we should be always careful because there is no way that we can prove the work of that medium, for example. There were many things in that book that were excellent. And I marked, I had the book for until recently. And I remember in the past center I used to go, they had the book for sale too. But because of these discrepancies that I remember marking and like not understanding and going to other people to compare to this book, and then they were like, yes, it's because we don't know deeply, it's better we stay with what we know, because the works of Chico Xavier are deeply trust. Just to have an idea, this book was written in 1938 when internet in the region that Chico Xavier lived didn't even exist. And that was really like very simple. And he was able to channel this book with such an amazing level of details. So just because of this, because of the discrepancies that I highlighted and were very different, then I was like, okay. So, but in other points, all the things of the Maya civilizations and also the Egyptians, like for example, the Egyptians, they created the pyramids, and in many areas they created corridors that ended in nowhere, that they didn't go to a chamber, that they were really labyrinths, and the people end up dying there. It was like, why did they create like that? So we studied last month, and there were some secrets. They in this book explain why It was created in that way. And it also explained when a very famous researcher was able to find the tomb of a famous pharaoh, most of the people that went with him there end up dying, or when they went there, or right afterwards. And this was really super interesting. I'm not going to tell the secret because I want people to read the previous chapter, but this is one of the things that I was like, oh wow. So but you are totally right, Juan. There are things that we cannot understand, and this book helped us so much with this understanding. And I remember the first time I was reading about it, I was like, oh my God, the first civilizations. Then I start understanding why these people came from Capella. Then I start understanding why the civilization in Egypt was so super advanced mathematically to build those pyramids that lasted until nowadays. And then they vanished, especially in Egypt. They vanished. Egypt nowadays is not well known for any type of scientific construction like it was in the past. And then we are going to continue seeing the Indians. They had a little bit more problems than the Egyptians, and then they kind of stay. And nowadays we see a lot of people from India, the Hindus from nowadays. Many of them are extremely connected with science, especially with math, with IT nowadays, with internet, all kinds of internet technological developments. So very interesting. Anyway, let's go. Katia, let me allow you to stop.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Now, what brings here to my attention is like when they say that it was the base of organized society, like as a society, moral or spiritual. So at the end of this chapter, we will see more about some divisions that they came, but they came as the first model, I would say, of organized society for us. Before, as you read, Egyptians and Israelite.
Mhm. Very good. And immediately after talking about the Hindu organization, the next item is pure Aryans. And this is very interesting because nowadays, when we talk about, oh, an Aryan, he's an Aryan man, we usually connect it to the idea that Hitler had. And what is the idea? An Aryan, super white, blonde with blue eyes. And then we start reading about the pure Aryans. So, what were actually the pure Aryans for that time when the civilizations came to Earth? Well, you guys want to start?
Okay, so on the book explains that they thought was like a legend, lost word, like possibly Lemuria, that it is Australia current today. But actually, all these spirits at that time, they were part of Capella. They were banished and they became the ancestors of the Aryan people that later moved and started like to move into Europe, right? So we think that it was just Indian, but it also moved to different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's worth mentioning that the book indicates that the Aryans that migrated to other lands like Europe were really doing it, thinking that they would escape the bad things that they associated with having been expelled from their memory. Told them that this was the case. So by going to other lands, they imagined that they would leave all these thoughts behind, which of course they didn't. But that was one of the reasons that the book mentions. They made them go to other lands, and also it mentions that some of them who wanted to stay were the more spiritual ones of the group, and those are the ones that really founded, to use that term, the Hindu society as we know it today, with the Vedas, which scriptures equivalent to the Bible to us, that they were the ones that brought spirituality into their day to day by adopting the notion of reincarnation and the notion of karma. Karma being something that you do today, you're going to pay for later, or you're going to be rewarded for that later. And those are notions that to this day, Spiritism embraces. So the group that remained behind were more spiritual, and those are the ones that had the basis and set the foundation for the spiritual India that we know today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good. It's very good to we comment about this, because these four big civilizations that came from the Star of Capella, and the Hindu was one of the civilizations that had the largest amount of knowledge about spirituality. So they were this very they had this religion within them, not even religion, this understanding that life goes on. And I remember a lecture of Haroldo Dutra Dias, a Brazilian speaker. He mentions that the Hindu civilization came to Earth, and then they faced all kinds of troubles, and then Haroldo joking, they said they saw problems, and then they just thought, okay, let me connect. Let me connect to God to feel good. Because they were so connected spiritually speaking. But of course, as each civilization, they came from Capella. They were sent here to Earth. They were forced. It's not they were invited. Come here, you can make a job. No,
They were banished from there and they came to here.
exactly. Exactly. The planet, the star of Capella reached to a point that was already evolving too much. And there were these different groups of people who had certain issues. And they were extremely intelligent because they were very elevated intellectually. And they were also, they had a lot of understanding of spirituality, but they had issues. Each one had a different issue. And the Hindus, we are going to be talking about the issues in a few minutes. But that's why they were obligated to come here. And when they came here, exactly like you mentioned in the beginning, Juan, they were searching for this land where they could be happy again, because they actually wanted to go back to their home. And where they landed, they were not happy. So they were like traveling. So when we talk this, guys, you have to understand that we are talking about millions of years ago. So we just spoke that the civilization of the Hindu is older from the Egyptians and older from the Israelites. And we remember from one of the most famous figures of the Israelite civilization was Moses. And Moses is much, much older than Jesus. And Jesus, it's over 2,000 years ago. So you just think about, imagine the numbers, how far we are talking about. But thank you so much for the contribution, Juan. So, Katia, what about the next item? This, because one was talking about the exploring different lands, and then the next item is this, the area expansion. So what is that?
This is related to their expansions into Europe, and also the mix that they had with the primitive people. This is related, they explain on the book, related to the dark skin from most of the Indians that they have today. And we think that like Greece, Italy, France, they like Greece. I lived in Greece for some time, and they call like as the first civilization, etc. But when you read this book and you understand that Indians also, they were the base for this civilization. They contributed also for them to expand and their societies.
Very, very good. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they actually did the boundaries of the Greek, Latin, Celtic, and Germanic
Germany.
societies.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And you know, when we talk about the color of the skin, that's much related to what I was mentioning before when we had the problem with the Aryans being nowadays the understanding of the Aryans that's like
White
the super
skin. Yeah.
white, the pure race, the white race. But what the spirits explained that their skin was actually dark, and as we know, uh, most of the civilizations that started on Earth, they started on Africa. And because of the weather, the sun super hot, then they had to have the skin very, very dark with a lot of production of melanin because they needed the protection from the sun that was extremely hot. But as they started this expansion, as they started leaving the continent, the African continent, to other Africans, and they immediately went to Europe, that's north. So the more they went north, the more the weather changed and
Yeah.
got colder. And then when it start getting colder and the sun is getting less strong, then through the centuries was not something that happened from one year to the other, but through the centuries, the light, the skin of the people that moved there started changing, started becoming lighter and lighter and lighter.
Yeah.
And that's how it ended up originating the other civilizations with a very light skin. Because people must be thinking, no, it's impossible. How come a person with a Indian, the Hindu, dark skin, black skin become like a Germanic skin, a Greek skin? But that's the explanation, and this is also proven biologically. The science, our science, also proved this. So it's not spiritism creating anything. So this very, very interesting that we
And as you said, and you just complimenting, this is for a long, 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 long time before the civilization that we know today, right? It's not something that, oh, it's like many past years, or it's for a long, long time that we're talking about.
exactly, exactly. This is the super important one. Awesome. And now we're jumping in the Mahatmas. So, Juan, what can we start talking about Mahatmas? What are Mahatmas?
Well, my understanding of this whole thing is that when the Aryans decided to migrate to other lands and go to Europe, there was a group that stayed behind, and there were the more spiritual um, groups, and they developed the Hindu traditions as we know them today. They are the ones that emphasized reincarnation and the thought of karma. Whatever you do today, you have to account for later. And they developed this spirituality that you find in India even today. If you travel to India, it is obvious to Western eyes that they're more spiritual in everything that they do. You can travel to Europe and you can go to Australia. You're not going to feel that difference. But when you go to India, you cannot help but notice that everyone in some way is more connected to spirituality. And I think that the people that stay behind, the ones you were mentioning, Angie, are responsible for that. But and they're responsible for the Vedas and all of the good traditions that Hindus follow still today. But at a certain point in time, the book tells us that the very thing that brought the exiles from Capella to earth, which was pride, was also their undoing here on earth, because they started to think themselves as being better than others, and especially the ones that had been found by them to be living in those areas in the Ganges. And so they developed the caste system, which is to this date an abomination to anyone that thinks in civilized terms. But in India, it was the way they decided to organize society. Mm-hmm. There were the priests that were at the very top, if my memory serves me right. Then you had the military people that came in second in the ranks, and then the merchants were the ones that were in third, and the laborers were one rank below, and finally there were the Dalits, the rest, the untouchables. They had to wear bells. I don't know if you watched a few movies that depict these things, but they had to announce themselves that they were coming to avoid touching anybody that was not their caste, because that was a horrible thing. And you can still see it in India sometimes. It's changed a lot. I went to India many times, and my very first time, that was a shock. And a few years later, 15 years later, it changed a lot visibly. But there's still, the more you go to the interior of India and to the little towns and everything else, you can see that not a lot has changed. That's still the case. And even though the Constitution of India, way back when Gandhi was in power, was changed to eliminate the caste system, to this date, the practice, what they do, it's still somewhat ingrained in their way of doing things, especially in the small towns away from Delhi and the big Bombay and Mumbai. No, not Bombay. Bombay's all guys like me, but the Mumbai town, for instance, is different. But you go into.
You mentioned that you went there many times. Why? Why you went to India many times?
Oh, it was due to my work. It was due to my work. We set up manufacturing locations. I was in the automotive industry, and the big car companies would call the suppliers of parts, like the company I worked for. Yeah. And they would say, I want to be assembling vehicles in India, for instance. Yeah. And I want to have you deliver parts on a on-time basis for me. So we had to go set up a facility to manufacture.
Oh, yes.
So in my lifetime, I was involved in setting up manufacturing facilities in India, in China, and many other places. And
but that's really cool. You end up traveling to these very different countries. For example, I never even thought about India, China, and they're beautiful in so many different ways.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. It's so different. It is so different from what we are used to seeing.
Juan, I have a question, because on the Mahatman piece, it says that living India today, it's leave in people profound impressions of the physical atmosphere. Did you feel that over there?
Yes.
Yes. So it's true. Like it's real. You feel
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay.
I
Okay.
remember a friend of mine. She went to India many times, but not because of work. She went searching for Sai Baba, and I didn't know, but she said Sai Baba had many different centers in many different cities. I thought Sai Baba was only in one place, and she said no, because he became so super famous, and the millions of people used to go to places, and was like impossible. So he had many centers, and he used to travel. So you never knew if you're gonna go to one place, Sai Baba was gonna be there. And then she said that when she arrived in the main center, the where he has one of the his temples, she said that it was outside super simple, like everything. She said that it's very very poor, and that you go, your life goes into transformation in every single point. She mentioned many shocking things, like seeing dead people on the floor, and people just walking like nothing, the person is dead. And many other things also, that they were instructed to be dressed super super simple. And she had sandals, and she put sandals, they have to put, everybody has to put the sandals outside the temple.
Yeah.
And when they came out, uh, her sandals and her friend's sandals, they were all stolen. And then the people saying, oh, because your sandals were in best condition, some people end up taking your sandals, and they probably left their sandals here. So now you have to you have to pick up other sandals. And she's like, but now I'm gonna be robbing somebody else's sandals. And you're like, oh, I'm like, wow. But it's like the things are so different. But when
Yes.
she went in the temple, she said the vibration is so strong. First of all, everybody is dressed in light colors. They are all sitting on the floor, meditating, and all like sending good vibrations. So she felt this so powerful as soon as she came in. And Divaldo Franco, the Brazilian medium who recently discarnated, he also went to India to meet Sai Baba. And he said that he felt Sai Baba coming from far, far away, because the energy that he started feeling was so strong. And he couldn't see him, but he could feel him already arriving. And he said he could describe that was like the Paris spirit was like huge. Givaldo could see the Paris spirit. Usually our Paris spirit is a little tiny thing, like after our physical body. And the more enlightened you are, bigger is your Paris spirit, if you could see in terms of light. And Givaldo Franco also mentioned how big was the Paris spirit. And talking about this, talking about Sai Baba, that's a very elevated spiritual figure. There were many others spiritual figures, very elevated, that incarnated in India. But this we are going to talk a little bit after, because we're going to talk about the Hajjas and the Parias. But Katya, I know Juan already jumped into castas.
Yep.
So, what can we talk about the castas? This division in the society, the Hindu society.
Yeah, like this, despite their spiritual wisdom, on the Hindu society, um, they allowed like the pride to grow, and this is why they started this division between the ones that are better than the others. And as you mentioned, like Christ sent like Buddha, Krishna, and many others that we might even don't know, or we know like a little bit from them. But even though this casts like for social thing, the social division it couldn't end. As one mentioned, it's not as the past, but it still exists this division that they do between the Aryans and the Aryan Dharma, and it's a tradition for them where they decentralize some authority for some and not for the others, and at the end, like, we are all brothers and sisters, and you shouldn't have these things like in nowadays, right? It's sad to
Exactly.
hear that we still have these things.
Exactly. So this is the main problem of the Hindu civilization, to be exiled from Capella to Earth. That Capella was a much more elevated star, and they came to Earth that was in a much worse level of condition in everything. They came because of pride. So they were expelled because they were too proud individuals. Imagine this huge civilization, all expelled because of this. It was the main thorn in their character. But then they come to earth to improve, to be better. Jesus receives them with open arms and tells, my little kids, difficult little kids, I'm receiving you. Everything is going to be better. You're going to improve. And boom, they went back to the same problem. They're proud. They were proud. So it mentions here in the last chapter that it talks about this was the thorn in the civilization, that this thorn of pride grow within their hearts, which was the reason for their exile to Earth on the first place. And soon the organization of castes split their communities forever. And that's exactly what we were talking before, that Juan mentioned the untouchables. So the untouchables are there. They are not untouchables because they are super special. Nobody can touch them. It's actually the contrary. They are very poor, humble, and they become untouchables because they, in their understanding, due to their pride that was carried on throughout the centuries, they understand that person who is sick, who is poor, who is debilitated, they are like this because of karma, because of something bad they did in a previous life, and then they incarnated as a deity, and means the worst of the worst, the lower of the lowest. And then if you touch them, whatever karma, whatever something bad is going on in their life, it transmits to you. And this is a horrible thing. And it is in the Hindu civilization until nowadays. And we understand, especially in Spiritism, that we are brothers and sisters from different parts of society. Some people are rich, others are not. Some people can go to school, others can't. But we all should help each other. And this is something good, and we have to try to break this thorn from the Hindu civilization. So it's good that you brought this for us to remember. We have to remember this thing shouldn't exist, and unfortunately, in a civilization that's so old with usages and customs, and they are so used to that, to break this is basically impossible. It's really, really hard. And as you mentioned too, they already received so many enlightened spirits trying to break it. You know, Buddha, then they had Gandhi,
Andy, yeah.
they had Sai Baba, as I just mentioned, all of them trying, but very, very difficult, very, very difficult. So, Katja, let's jump in now. Let's talk about the Rajas and the Parias. So,
Yep.
what is that?
Um, this is like they have like advanced systems of religion and philosophy, but their pride was intrinsic on them, and even knowing about reincarnation, knowing that you might come to another life, um, like as a beggar to redeem the past errors. But this tradition, it's for the castes and all this pride thing that they have, it's still there. Like, it's completely rejected, I would say. So they know the good on the spiritual side, but they're still like trying to get better on their way. So they form this rajas, like they return as a past errors, but not still not there yet.
Mm-hmm. And Juan, what can we add in the to this portion of pajas and parias?
Well, I think that the ironic part of the whole thing is that with all the spirituality that the Indians had, um, they had a knowledge of reincarnation, and yet they still went and adopted these bad practices that seem to move away from that spiritual tradition that they have. So that's it doesn't make sense, you know. Like I mentioned, you travel to India and you find them so spiritual in so many ways, and so many, and then you have this thing that smacks you right in the face and totally contrary to, and yet it's still there. You know, it's just a sign of,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, this is really always amazed me because they're so knowledgeable. They have so much understanding. How they can how they can be like this? How they don't have any type of compassion? But that's exactly what you said. Is this tradition is so ingrained in their minds, and it passes from generation to generation. You know, your baby is born since very, very little. They tell you, don't touch him. He is in this situation because of something horrible he did in the past. And then they perpetuate. It's difficult. Only enlightened spirits, for example, not even Gandhi. Let's talk to Buddha. Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, he was a prince. Imagine, he was a prince, super rich in a castle. He was not aware of the situation that his country was going through until they say that one day that he had an enlightenment and he wanted to see how was life outside the castle, and they protected him. They didn't want him to go out. He couldn't be exposed to the untouchables, for example. And when he saw it, he had this enlightenment, and he said, I need to be with them. I'm here to help them. I am part of them. So it's not easy to act like he did. He abandoned everything to go to live with them. So, and as you mentioned, Katya, yes, this terrible proud that continues separating them. And I remember a friend of mine who is Hindu, and he was explaining. Uh, he came to the Spiritist Center many times, and he said that he actually liked the Spiritism because gave the a different notion of reincarnation, because he was explaining that his family still believes that if someone does something bad, something horrible, for example, they will reincarnate as a cockroach, for example. uh, Cockroach is like the top of horrible, because they also believe you can reincarnate as a Daliti, that's a very poor, simple person, but it's still a person. But if you do something horrible, you're not a person anymore. Now you are insect. Now you are cockroach. And I was like, a cockroach? And he said, yes, that's why Hindus, when they see rats and they see cockroaches, they understand it's people who did bad things. And I was like, oh, wow, that's very, very different from Spiritism, that we understand that after we reach to the elevation of being a human being, we cannot go backwards. We cannot reincarnate as an animal or insect. We will always reincarnate as a human being, and we don't go back. We stay stationary or we evolve. And throughout our problems, difficult reincarnations, we learn and then we continue improving.
Yeah.
And and then I'm conscious of our time. I have a so the rallies she mentioned here, maybe we also came from Capella and are still evolving here.
For sure.
Not maybe the rest, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. And we might
Because
have some limited beliefs as the Indians have, the Hindus. We might have some that this is why we're still here. This is why we're still like doing the same school year, right? We repeat the school year, but we never go back to the previous year. So we go fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, or we can repeat fourth grade forever. But at some point, we are going to remove or learn, experience the limited beliefs that we also have, and then move forward to the next school year on the progress.
exactly, exactly. And the relish, many of the civilizations that came from Capella, a lot of them were able to return to Capella in a much better way. But the others, they couldn't, and could be us still learning. Like Katya said, we did fourth grade so many times that we are still here. But we are finally getting a little bit better, because if we are here Thursday night talking about it, yes, we are improving. And this is wonderful. This is wonderful. So she also says, I have always liked astronomy and the universe. And after reading about Capella, I wonder no more. You probably are one of the Capellians too. So many people have this super, super strong connection with India and Egypt. And so maybe that's why maybe there is this connection from that civilizations. But moving on, because we need to end, what we can talk about the last item. The last item title is In Light of Jesus. What can we talk about it? Who won?
Well, I think that Emmanuel makes, after explaining all about the Hindus and all that, he makes a comment about how Jesus came to give us all a chance to go through the process of purification, and so we can get better. And that's what I extracted from that last paragraph, from that last comment that Emmanuel wrote about Jesus being, in a loving way, protecting us and giving us another chance.
Katya, what can we add? Can you
Yeah,
add?
I think like we understood that India is like the matrix of philosophy. They do have philosophy of life, a religion also, but also materialism. So the Jesus brings like his mission is to bring us together. Even we have those three things. This his main um, point is to bring us together with love, fraternity, and try to dissolve this social barriers that we have and racial as well, to have like a universe with compassion, with love, and everything good that we can imagine.
Very good. Very good. And
Angie, one One quick comment, if I may. Um, Somebody that was traveling with me, and we talked about the caste system and all that, and you know how horrible, and you know how can you explain it with the Hindus being what they are. He made one comment that stuck with me, and today it takes on a different meaning. But he said to me, "Don't be a hypocrite." He said, because he said our civilization is just as bad as their caste system. We invented slavery. We exterminated the Jews, and we have ghettos, and we allow poor people to be begging on the streets and all that. That is just the modern way of doing what the Hindus did with the caste systems. And I kind of thought about it and said, you know, he's got a point. In a way, that's exactly what we have done.
Yeah, no, I understand. He had a point, but the big point is that we all understood these points were extremely wrong. And we
Yes.
don't have this anymore. We don't, nowadays, we understand the extermination of the Jews was the most horrible thing ever happened. And the slavery was absolutely a disgrace. And yes, still in certain portions of earth, this type of thing still might exist, but in a much, much smaller. And thankfully, the law of society also evolving and prohibiting this from happening. But the caste in India exists until nowadays. That's the big problem.
True.
But one day, hopefully, the caste system will be also seen as a horrible slavery and the horrible extermination of the Jews. So that's what we really hope that one day will happen to India. But yes, we also had very, very dark pasts. And hopefully, we continue evolving towards the light, as the name of the book, on the way to the light. So let's leave slavery and exterminations in the back, knowing that unfortunately we still have wars, horrible wars happening. Unfortunately, we see nowadays Israel exterminating basically the Palestine people. So it is terrible. It is very, very sad. And unfortunately, the only thing we can see when these horrible things happen is to pray, and we pray that this will end, and somehow peace will be found. And it's painful for us to see all of that. And thank God to Spiritism, because we understand that our physical body dies, but our spirit lives. So this gives us hope that if this ends, we will come back in a much, much better way, improved way, and we continue our path on the way to the light. My friends, thank you so much for your presence. It's 10 o'clock. We have to go. Thank
Okay,
you. It
thank you.
was awesome. But I would like to ask Katya to do our final prayer.
Sure, sure. Let's close our eyes. Breathe, deeply. Let's connect with God. Let's be grateful for this moment. Let's be grateful for the learning that we had here, for God to give us the opportunity to understand, to try to understand, and to bring this to our lives and to try to make the world a little bit better every day, every minute. Thank you, God, for everything. Thank you for our health, our families, our food, and also all the light, all the good vibrations that we are putting here that goes to the countries